Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com coming to you with my Monday mashup video here. My thoughts for February 4th, the day after the Super Bowl. And, some people may have packed betting away now with the Super Bowl in the rearview mirror. It's, something that becomes secondary for them. They may come back in August, or maybe they'll come back for March Madness and, throw some money around on brackets and things of that sort. But I completely understand it because February is a very difficult month, in my humble opinion. As far as the sports that a lot of people like to bet on, I think February is the most difficult month. So I'm going to give you some betting tips here for the month of February, focusing specifically on the NBA, the NHL, and college basketball. Obviously, we still have UFC, soccer, tennis, a lot of different sports going on. And, of course, the American Football Alliance or American Alliance of Football, whatever the hell that thing's called, that'll be starting up here very soon as well. So, we still will get some football, but primarily, a lot of people are going to be playing the NBA, the NHL, and college basketball. So I'll give you some thoughts here on those in our Monday mashup video. And we'll start with the NBA. Because in the NBA, the All-Star break, a couple of weeks away now. You got a full week here this week. Next week, a lot of teams begin their All-Star break on Thursday. Some teams begin their All-Star break on Friday. So what are we looking for at this time of the year in the NBA? Well, right now, I want to look to back veteran teams. I want to look to back the teams that understand that these couple of weeks before the All-Star break are a good opportunity to bank some wins and a good opportunity to maybe make up some ground in those conference playoff races. Those are teams that are going to have a lot of guys that understand what it takes to get your body through the grind of 82 games. Some of the younger teams that are out there, especially some of the younger teams that have overachieved a little bit, I'm thinking maybe a team like Sacramento, for example. These teams that have younger guys that are recently out of college, they may be wearing down a little bit. The grind of the regular season may be getting to them some. They may be looking ahead to that break, to that downtime. So right around this time of the year is when I really start to hone in on looking at those veteran teams, those teams that know the grind, those teams that know that this is a good chance to kind of smell blood in the water and, look to take advantage of some of those weaker teams out there. So that's something that I look to do in the NBA at this time of the year because, look, just like any other time in the NBA, you're looking to handicap motivation, you're looking to handicap the teams that are still invested. I think the older teams, particularly those that are, on the cut line or close to it for the playoffs, I think those are the buy teams right now. I think those are the teams you do want to be looking to back because, as I said, they'll play with a little bit higher of a sense of urgency. They'll play with a little bit more emotion, and you always want to try to back a team that is going to give you a full effort. It's probably something that we don't talk about as much on Bang the Book Radio and in our articles at BangTheBook.com. We do sort of in a roundabout way talk about it with our situational betting articles and the situational video that I do on Wednesdays here. But ultimately, you want to back a team that's going to give you an effort, a team that's going to show up. And as you head closer to these breaks, these extended periods of downtime, not all effort levels are going to be created equal, much like they are at any other time. But I think you've got a clear, defined advantage on those older teams, those teams, again, that are near the cut line or those teams that want to improve their playoff standing before they head off for that break. So I would definitely look to be doing that when it comes to the NBA. Now, when you talk about the NHL just coming out of the All-Star break. So all of these teams, fresh as a daisy here, a lot of teams playing 4 games this week, not as many of them playing 4 games next week. But right now in the NHL, you're kind of in a little bit of an interesting spot because the NHL trade deadline is coming up at the end of the month. So you run into a situation where teams are really trying to push to get into that playoff picture, to safely put themselves in the playoff picture, and also show the front office that, hey, we could use some help, or maybe, this is a group that we want to go to battle with, but we do want to put you in a position, I should say, to make some decisions here later in the month and on into the month of March. So, again, I think there's some urgency in the NHL from teams that, again, are sort of on the cut line or some teams that, are maybe upset with how they played going into the All-Star break. I think that's a big positive angle to look at. Again, this is the first full week for the NHL coming out of the All-Star break. The bye weeks are all over with now. So the teams that didn't play well in the month of January, I think there's sort of a renewed sense of purpose for them over the next 3-4 weeks as they try to, build themselves back up a little bit and also try to get their front offices to believe in them so that they can maybe go out there, fill some holes with some rental players, things of that sort. It's that time of the year, I think, where effort and motivation really do shine and maybe sometimes even outshine talent, just because the talented teams may coast a little bit here, particularly in the NBA, where I think it's kind of the dog days of winter a little bit. But in the NHL, the talented teams know who they are. They know that their front offices are hard at work looking for, complementary and supplementary pieces to get them over the hump come playoff time. I think those teams in the NHL, maybe some of the good teams are a little bit fat and happy at this time of the year. But teams are looking to make up ground, teams that didn't play well going into the All-Star break. I think those are the types of teams that you want to isolate here this week as teams that, are going to make that push, are going to put forth that little bit of extra effort. Finally, on the college basketball side, the month of February is a challenge because a lot of these teams, some of these teams specifically know that their only chance is the conference tournament. So they'll position themselves in that respect with coaches using different rotations, maybe trying different defenses, something like that. So, excuse me, I guess this is a really high variance time of the year in college basketball where the teams that are at the bottom of the conference standings aren't really going to put forth too much of an effort a lot of nights. Teams up there near at the top are fighting for seeding, fighting for buys, all those kinds of things for the conference tournaments. This is something that we will definitely see here in a couple weeks' time, but since I won't have a video next Monday, I wanted to talk about it here on today's video. But, those teams, everyone has a different motivation level in college basketball right now. The really good teams want to smooth out the rough edges, want to get themselves rounded off for the conference tournaments, try to win a conference title, and then head on into March Madness. The teams in the one-bid leagues want to keep playing well, guarantee themselves the top seeds, because in a lot of those low and mid-major conferences, there are very clear advantages to being a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed. Some of them have double buys. Some of them are played on campus sites. Sometimes you get a little bit of extra rest. I know that was a big angle in the Missouri Valley here over the last few years. So those teams have different motivations from the teams that are down at the bottom. The elite teams have different motivations from the teams in the middle of the pack in the major conferences. So February is a huge month for motivation. That's the biggest takeaway I wanted to give you here on this Monday mashup video, is that you want to take a really hard look at which team in a given game is going to give you a max effort. And maybe it's both teams. And if it's both teams, then you revert back to a true handicap of looking at the statistics and everything that goes into the game, all the individual matchups and things of that sort. But if you've got a game where you think one team's going to give a bigger effort, a road revenge spot, a team that needs a win to get to a certain point, and of course in the pro leagues, teams that want to make up some ground in the division or in the conference or, like I said, in the NBA, bank some of those wins going into the All-Star break. I think motivation is the most important factor here in the month of February because of everything that's at stake across all of these different leagues. So that's something I would encourage you to keep in mind as you handicap the card here on a daily basis. If you're somebody who's just transitioning now from football to basketball and hockey, keep it very simple early on, get a feel for these teams, get an understanding of what you have to work with, and then look to fire away a little bit as we get deeper into the month. But again, motivation, huge factor here in the post-Super Bowl betting market before we get to conference tournaments, before we get to trade deadlines, before we get to playoff pushes and March Madness. Motivation means so much at this time of the year. It's the most important factor to keep in mind, and I hope that it is something that you keep in mind and have a lot of success with in your handicapping here this month. I'm Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com.